Matthew Harvey, author of such things as Wolf of Wessex, the Bernicia Chronicles, The Time for Swords. And I just thought I would say hello and do one of these lives that I haven't done in a while, and talk a little bit about different odds and ends. I've been had a break from the writing for a while over Easter, and I'm back now into the swing of writing, but I'm writing something quite different from the Bernicia Chronicles or Time for Swords or Wolf of Wessex. And so I've been watching some different things and listening to different things and reading different things. And I thought I'd just tell you some of the things that I've been watching and listening to while I write, which might give a bit of a clue as to what I'm writing. I'm not actually writing a full novel at the moment. I decided that I'd dip my toes into a slightly different genre, but in the form of I wasn't sure if it's going to be a short story or a novella. As I'm up to 12,000 words now, it's a bit too long for a short story, so it's going to be some sort of novelette or a novella or something. Whether that ever makes the light of day as something that will be on sale, I do not know. We will see. We'll see how it turns out. At the very least, I'll probably, almost certainly, if I don't sell it, and maybe even if I do, I'll give it to patrons to have a read of. So if you want to see sort of advanced snippets of the writing of that and other things that I'm writing when I'm writing, then by all means sign up to Patreon. I'll stick a link in the description here, but if not, it's on my webpage. You can find it there. It's patreon.com/Matthew Harvey, I think. But if I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you go to MatthewHarvey.com, you can find links to Patreon and everything else there. So first up, before I sort of talk about what I've been watching and listening, I thought I would give a quick shout out to a book that I'm reading, which is in the same sort of genre as I am known for writing. I usually write. So I'm reading Oathbound by Richard Cullen. It's very, very good. I'm really enjoying it. He's published by Head of Zeus, the same publisher as me. I've had Ares Fiction, which is an imprint of Head of Zeus. And he's just been longlisted for the Wilbur Smith Adventure Writing Prize for this year, along with other writers that you'll have heard of. One of which I remember is Giles Christian, and you'll definitely know him. And we've talked before on this channel. Giles Christian is nominated for his modern day thriller, and Richard Cullen is nominated for Oathbound, or not nominated, sorry, long-listed. So there are many nominations. I was probably nominated by someone, but I'm not long-listed. Oathbound is. So if you haven't heard of it, it's definitely worth a read. When I've finished it, I'll write up a few lines of my thoughts. But yeah, it's great. Set in 1066, or just before 1066, and in 1066, and the aftermath of the Battle of Hastings and all of that jazz. So lots of action, great storytelling. So probably, if you like my books, I pretty much guarantee that you'd like this, Oathbound by Richard Cullen. The cover now is very different. They've done a new cover on it, so you might not recognize the cover if you look it up, but definitely worth a look. So that's my current reading. I've got some other books on my table that are non-fiction that I'm looking at as I write. But one of the things I did a couple of weeks ago was saw The Northmen, the new Robert Eggers film, which I'm sad to say I didn't enjoy as much as I hoped I would, which was very disappointing. I'm not going to go into huge details about that now. I might save that for another program and do a whole, another video, and do a whole video on that when I've sort of put my thoughts together a bit more. But I'm not going to go into huge details anyway. It was good. It's a well-made film. But it fell flat for different reasons for me. So it'd be interesting to maybe dive into that in a bit more detail at another date. But I did listen to afterwards. I listened to the music from the Northmen. When I'm writing, I listen to music that doesn't have lyrics or words or singing, as I find it that distracts me. So I do listen to sort of orchestral music or often film soundtracks. Very good because they're good at building emotions and sort of setting a time and place and giving you sort of a real feel for a certain type of genre, I guess, and a location. Um, so I did listen to a little bit of the Northmen soundtrack afterwards, and it is pretty good. And I mean, it is really good. The whole film is well made, so everything about it is very good. Um, and yeah, the music's great. So I think probably when I do get back into the next A Time for Swords novel or the next Bearbrand Bernicia book, I probably will be listening to some of the Northman music. See who did the music for it. By Robin Carolan and Sebastian Gainsborough are credited for the music on the Northman. So yeah, very very interesting. The film, as I said, Robert Eggers, and if you haven't heard of it, if you're into Vikings and Viking Age stuff, then it's definitely worth a watch. No matter that I'm saying it fell a bit flat for certain reasons for me, but it's definitely worth a watch. I would definitely recommend you go and watch it and make your own mind up about it. And once you've seen it, maybe I'll do a longer video about the Northman and we can talk about that. So one of the things that the Northman sparked was in me, because of certain similarities with that and other films, or one film in particular that struck a chord for me, was the John Milius film Conan the Barbarian, 1982 John Milius film, and the music by Basil Polydorus. And Conan the Barbarian is one of my all-time favorite fantasy films, if not all-time favorite films. First major starring role in a movie for Arnold Schwarzenegger made him a star. It's quite a low budget movie at the time. It made huge returns in the box office, and it's just a great grounded action adventure movie, but with a real sort of artistry behind it as well. So, and it feels quite there's a lot of, I don't know what it feels like. It resonates more than just an action hack and slash movie. There's something more to it. It's heftier than that. And one of the things about it is that is great about it. Many of the things are great about it, but one of the things is the music. The score by Basil Polydorus is incredible. And so I've been listening to that as I write. It's something that I often listen to when I'm writing. And so I've had a re-listen to that, which is great for sort of action scenes and things. But getting on to some other things that I've been listening to. I've been listening to the soundtrack from other movies that might explain what I'm writing about. So one of them is a film I've seen many times. In fact, they all are. But and I've been listening to the music, and it actually prompted me to go back and rewatch the film as well. So I've watched this again, and that's Tombstone, which is a 1993 film directed by George P. Cosmatos, and starring Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Bill Paxton's in it, Sam Elliott, Michael Biehn, Powers Booth. It's a fantastic film, really in the classic tradition of the classic Western, but in the 90s, and going quite against the grain, really, I think, of the sort of revisionist Westerns of the time. But again, great, and the music's brilliant. Cult classic, I think would sum it up as a movie. And Val Kilmer is just incredible, and Kurt Russell as well as Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp, in fact, the famous gunslinger and marshal and Western general, famous bloke who survived the Wild West and therefore became really famous, of the OK Corral fame. Was born on the same day as me, not the same year, obviously, but yeah, we share a birthday, which I found out several years ago, and I thought that was interesting. And I don't believe in horoscopes or anything, but I thought maybe I've got some of that. same character as Wyatt Earp, walking towards the bullets instead of running away. Yeah, pretty unlikely, I think. But anyway, great film, great soundtrack. Music is by who's it by? Bruce Broughton. Bruce Broughton did the music for that, and I couldn't find it on Amazon Music or anything that I was listening to, but I could find it on YouTube. So I've been listening to that on YouTube, and it's great and very atmospheric for that type of thing. Also been listening to the music of a film which came out just a year after, must have been in production at the same time, which is also about Wyatt Earp and actually called Wyatt Earp, and that's stars Kevin Costner in the main role, and lots of other famous actors: Gene Hackman, Mark Harmon, Michael Madsen, Bill Pullman, Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid is Doc Holliday in it, and I think if you took both Tombstone and Wyatt Earp and put them together, you'd probably get the absolute perfect movie. They've both got things about them which are fantastic, and certain things that they could be done better. But Wyatt Earp is probably a better movie, I would say, but it's definitely bigger and more epic. Directed by Lawrence Kasdan, who's great, and he co-wrote it with Dan Gordon. Lawrence Kasdan, of course, wrote some of the Star Wars movies and the Indiana Jones movies, and directed all sorts of things as well. But it's fantastic. Fantastic at dialogue, great scripts, and a great director too. And the music of that is also brilliant. It's by James Newton Howard, and I've been listening to that whilst writing. Are you seeing a theme yet? I think you might. I've also been listening to another Kevin Costner movies soundtrack, which is Dances with Wolves. So Kevin Costner's a huge Western fan, and he wrote. He didn't write. Sorry, the screenplay is by Michael Blake. He directed Dances with Wolves and starred in it, of course. It was a massive success, which he was already doing well at the time, but this catapulted him into superstardom. And the music is by John Barry, and that music is fantastic as well, and really conjures up some of those huge vistas of the American West. Tombstone is fabulous. So I've watched all of those movies many times before, and I rewatched Tombstone recently. I'll probably go back and rewatch Wyatt Earp and Dances with Wolves when I've got the time. But they're both quite long films. And I watched Conan the Barbarian just a few months ago, actually. But my dog is barking. I don't know what he wants. Wait a minute, I'm going to call him in. Blue, come here. Come here. Blue, come here. He's ignoring me. Well, stop barking then. Come here or stop barking. That's what you get when you go live and you got the dog in the garden refusing to come in. He's been asleep all day, and now he's decided that he wants to be in the garden. Anyway, so yeah, it's part of what I'm writing at the moment. So I've been watching all these different westerns to get different sort of vibes, and listening to the music of them really while I'm writing. And I decided to go back to some old school westerns that I'd not seen before. So I've been looking through lists of classic westerns and finding them on streaming services and watching them when I get a chance, when everyone goes to bed and nobody wants to watch anything. So I've watched Hondo, which is a 1953 John Wayne stars. It's directed by John Farrow. And apparently, I'm just seeing here, John Ford is uncredited as directing some of the final scenes as well. So I don't know much of the history about that film. But I did know that it was based on a Louis L'Amour story, which he then did the novelization of the film. All right, okay, so yeah. It's an okay film. Yeah, it's all right. Not that amazing. Can't really remember it actually. I saw it I saw it a while ago. It's not that brilliant because I can't really remember it, but I'm vaguely remembering it now. I saw it like a week ago, and it sort of already slipped my mind what it's all about. But anyway, oh yeah, I remember now. I do remember this, and it was originally filmed in 3D. I'm reading here, and it reminds me there's bits of the direction which is very obvious that it was filmed in 3D, and it also made me laugh to think about how Avatar. Which the sequel's coming out soon, and of course Avatar was out 2012 or something, and it totally reignited the whole 3D cinema thing, and we got 3D TVs and 3D films everywhere. And how in 1953 they were making 3D movies, and there's bits of it that are really obviously directed, thinking about the 3D stuff. So there's bits when John Wayne's being attacked by the North American Native Americans, the Indians, and they're poking spears and stuff, and it's all sort of into the camera, and you've got all these sort of things. So it's all very much geared towards the 3D direction, which is fun. I listened recently to the audiobook of another classic Western, Shane, and I'd never seen the film, so the book was great. It's a Jack Schaffer or Schaefer, I don't know how you pronounce his surname, book, and it's a short book, but it's very good. And obviously the film is incredibly famous. I thought I should go back and watch it. Found it on Now TV, I think it was, or Now Movies or whatever, and I went and watched that. Classic movie, directed by George Stevens, screenplay by A.B. Guthrie Jr. and Jack Sher, based on that novel by Jack Schaefer, as I said. Yeah, that was really good, and pretty close to the novel. Not exactly the same, but pretty close. And if you haven't seen it, it's just a classic. So you should definitely go off and watch that. So those are some of the things I've been watching and listening to. The reason I'm doing this today and not tomorrow, and I normally do my little live chats when I do them, is that tomorrow I'm having a day off, and I'm actually going to meet one of my best friends, and we're going to go and have a few drinks, have lunch together. But before we get too into the drinks, we're going to go and throw some axes. So actually, my wife gave me a present of a trip to one of these axe throwing places. So we're going to go and do that. So should be fun. An afternoon of axes and ales. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully that will give me some inspiration for the next of the Dark Age, early medieval stories that I write. Seeing some questions popping up here. Have you seen Soldier Blue? I don't think I have. If I have, I've forgotten. So I will go back and revisit it, but it rings a bell, but I don't think I've seen it. I definitely haven't seen it recently, so I'll have to go back and have a look. Mention here from Ray about Unforgiven. Yeah, I love Unforgiven. Great, but even more the earlier Eastwood movies. Some of the Sergio Leone ones are great, but I really love the Outlaw, Josie Wales, Pale Rider, and all of those are brilliant. Yeah, I mean, Eastwood is, in many ways, he's the face of the gunslinger, isn't he? He's just incredible. Comment here about throw the axes before the ale. Probably good. I don't think we'll be having more than one ale before we throw the axes. I think it's lunch with a pint, and then throw some axes, then some more axe action. Hilariously, as I say, my wife bought me the axe throwing thing, and then we were watching something on TV last week, 911, the TV series, and so someone got an axe in the back of their head. Actually, and I was joking to the wife, saying, "Oh, that'll be me next week." And then I said, "It's Friday the 13th tomorrow, so what could go wrong?" I shouldn't joke. Well, if this is the last video that I do, that was, you know what happens. You'll read about it. Author killed in freak axe accident. Could be worse ways to go. If I do, then buy my last book, released posthumously. I shouldn't joke about this stuff. Forest of Foes out in December this year. already written and handed in. So that's going. Um, so yeah, what else was I going to say? Anything else? Oh yeah, I had been talking about on the 19th of May. We're supposed to be doing a books and booze talk with Dan Davis, but unfortunately Dan's had to cancel that. But never fear, for I am lining up some more talks. I think the Dan Davis is on the, it's an open invitation, so he's cancelled at the moment, or postponed. Maybe he'll be back, but at the moment that's had to be postponed. But I've been talking to some other writers about coming on, and I haven't got dates fixed for everybody yet, but I'll announce that as I do. I'm trying to do sort of one a month or so. Tim Hodkinson has already said yes. Tim, of course, writes a series of Viking novels published by Head of Zeus as well. So yeah, he should be. I met him before. He's a great guy, and that should be an interesting chat. Also looking to line up talks with Prue Batten, who's based in Tasmania, so the other side of the world. So the time difference might be interesting there, but we haven't fixed the date yet. But she writes his sort of historical fiction and fantasy, but historical fiction set in probably 12th, 13th century or something like that. So the time of the Crusades, or sort of higher medieval period. And yeah, she writes really, really great, interesting characters and stories. And I know she just got one of her books. It's just being released in audiobook format very soon, and that's called Tobias. And that was really interesting. Really interesting story. So I'll let you know when that's out, or we'll talk about it with Prue when she's on the channel. Who else? So I talked to Carol Mcgrath. Carol Mcgrath. I don't know if you pronounce her name Mcgrath or Mcgrath, but Carol Mcgrath, let's call her that, who writes historical fiction set around the 11th century, sort of 1066, and about the queens of that period. And she's done some nonfiction as well, and is very knowledgeable. So we're talking about doing a date in September, having a chat. And I've reached out to some other writers as well, and I'll continue reaching out to writers. But if you've got any writers that you'd like me to talk to, then drop their names into the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Yes, I think that's it from me. Everybody else, have a great day or afternoon or whatever time of the day it is where you are. Hope you're safe and well, and happy reading. And until next time, goodbye.